be here. I'm going to try and make sure I stay out of your way. And so I'm at the Botanical Garden where the mission is research and preservation of plants and things like that. So why am I here talking about residential energy efficiency? Well, I have a background of over 30, probably 35 years by now, experience in the construction business. And with that mission for plant preservation, the garden has seen a call to work in reference to the things that threaten the plant world and the plant community. And climate change is one of those things. One way to mitigate it is through energy efficiency and other sustainable measures. So the garden has a division dedicated to sustainability at the garden and out in the community as well. And I am part of that team. I'm a LEED accredited professional. I'm a Building Performance Institute building analyst and envelope professional. And I have MIA's building operator certification. So I passed a few exams regarding sustainability and energy efficiency in the residential and commercial sectors. And I wanted to share what some of my 30 plus years of experience in construction has taught me about making things a little better at home. And I've been happy and glad to put some of these things in practice because I live in a home in Tower Grove South that was built in 1893. And even though I'm only about a third of the way done with improvements on my house, they've made a difference, and they'll continue to make a difference. Now, at the very beginning, I will say I like my utilities. When I flip the switch at home and the lights come on, it makes me happy. When I turn on the heat, and I went into the bathroom this morning to get cleaned up, and I felt the heat coming out of the register, I was thankful to my friends at Reilly, you know, for keeping things going. So this isn't about like bashing folks, but it is about sharing information, and some of it relates to the work that they do. I was lucky enough a few years ago to get on 170 feet in the air on top of the boilers at the Labadie coal-fired power plant that Ameren has in the Missouri River. And I like to show that from here to here and here to here is a 45-day supply of coal. And this little dashed line along the tree line is a train full of coal. And in the heat of the summer, 3 trains a day come in, dump coal, go get some more. And it keeps burning. And about 80% of our electricity comes from coal in this area. But if it all came from Labadie, and I work with the engineers on this to figure this out, and it's the heat of the summer, it burns 2 train loads a day. So, and if your home, older home in this beautiful neighborhood, you know, needs up to 2,000 kilowatt hours a month to keep the air conditioners going and the refrigerator going, that's the equivalent of 70 pounds of coal being burned a day, or over 1 ton a month just in your house. So if you think about energy use in our region, you know, it's big, and anything that we do to mitigate it is helpful contribution to that process. Now, one of the cool things about being a green guy is, and greening your own homes, is that you will save money in the process, and you will make your house more comfortable. And if you do it all the right way, you'll make your house safer. You'll improve the indoor environmental quality and make dealing with allergies and things like that a little easier, you know. But it's also about how energy use works in our country. So just real quickly, about 1/4 of the energy used is in homes. And only a little more than that is used in transportation and cars. So you see, we burn a lot of fossil fuels to keep our homes cool and warm, as much as we do basically to ship goods, to drive around, and etc. And commercial and industrial takes up the other half. Now, within a house, that's about half of our energy is used for heating and cooling. The other half is used for what we call our base load. And it's an important part of getting to know how your home works is to take a look at your utility bills and think a little bit about base load and seasonal load. So I'm assuming most of us are heating with gas and cooling with electric in this neighborhood. And you can access through your online accounts all the data that you've got from Laclede and from Ameren, and you can start to put it together with a little bit of research. And what you'll find is that your gas bills go up in winter, your electric bills go up in summer, and those are your seasonal loads. If you look at your utility bills and you find, well, what do I got going in, say, April and May and September and October when I'm not using any heat or any cooling, you can probably figure that's pretty close to your base load. That's the amount of electricity you're using for computers, TVs, appliances, etc. And look at the delta between those two and do another little bit of research just to see if, is my base load really high? Or is my base load in line with other houses of this kind and sort. So it's a, the beginning of understanding your home, understand your utility bills, and figure out where you are. And that's going to help lead to a plan of where you want to be. And we'll talk about that as we move along. So part of what we'll be talking about today is a home energy audit. And it's about gathering information, again, to understand where your home is today, to be able to figure that out. And homes leak. All homes leak. Even the most, I'm on the board of directors of Habitat for Humanity, and we've built well over 100 LEED Platinum homes. Some of the tightest, unleakiest homes in the city. And they still leak a little. Very, very little, but they still leak some. Now, a home like I live in, and perhaps many of you, leaks like a sieve. And what that is your Laclede bucks and your Ameren bucks going out through the cracks and crevices. That's why energy efficiency best begins with air sealing and insulation. And in a typical house, basement or crawl space, some ductwork, lights, things in the highest floor, before the attic, windows, fans in kitchens, around doors, etc., are places where air moves. There's something called the stack effect. So if you imagine it in winter, the hot air rises, right? It's usually a little harder to cool the second floor than it is to heat it. So that hot air is finding all the cracks and crevices at the attic hatch, at any other sort of orifice. If you've got a whole house fan in the attic and it's not well sealed, insulated, and capped off in the winter, it's just like having a big hole in your roof practically. So these are places air leaks out. In the stack effect, when that hot air is coming up, there's pressure differential, right? Where's the makeup air coming in? Well, it's the cold air coming in through every crack and crevice in the basement. And that's how you end up with a drafty, uncomfortable house. So all that fresh air coming in, as it were, is unfiltered. And when you build a super tight house and you figure out I'm going to manage my ventilation with filtered ventilation, that's when you see really great advancements in the indoor air quality. So how do you find out where the leaky spots are on a house-by-house basis, And this is where we get more specific with energy auditing. It's all about making a plan. And as part of that plan, it's good to understand the embodied energy of the products you're going to use. Where do they come from? Well, if they come from half the world away, there's a lot of energy spent just getting them to your house. If it's a little more local, considerably less energy. That's how to think about embodied energy. Sometimes when I'm talking about building materials, the difference between an oak floor from a well-managed forest in Kentucky that travels 200 miles to St. Louis is considerably lower than another green option, bamboo flooring, that comes on a slow diesel boat across the Pacific, right? So that's the idea of embodied energy. The other important concept is durability. We want things to last. And so that has to do with taking care of things like our roof, so we're managing moisture and water control. We don't want that affecting how long our insulation and air sealing projects last. So you want to take good care of the building envelope. So, and there's a gamut of energy efficiency work that runs from weatherization to a deep energy retrofit. So weatherization is a lot of do-it-yourself work, plus maybe an energy audit, maybe some insulation work, a few things like that. A deep energy retrofit can be a gut rehab, in which you take a beautiful brick house and you frame up 2x4s against the outside wall so you can add insulation. Because the brick wall's got an R value of about 5. And the higher the R value, the more insulating work it does. So it's not very good. In those habitat homes, we're building walls with R values in the mid-20s, so 5 times more insulation. So, you know, while we can't build with the same bricks, etc., there's also reasons not to build with the same bricks in terms of performance. So we talked about analyzing energy consumption. Vampire electric is like all those little lights that are on for your phone chargers, and you see the little light, you're not charging your phone, but that's Laclede, or rather Amarin. I'm so sorry. That's Amarin's, that's Vampire Electric. It's not much, but if you find that in devices and computers and TVs all over your house, it's $10 a year. So if you use a power strip or something to manage that, ultimately that pays back. So this is all about little incremental, small investments that add up over time. And I always say to myself, well, okay, if I get a power strip and plug my phone chargers and things into it and I turn it off when I'm not using them, so those little lights aren't on, would I pick up $10 if I saw it walking down the street? Yeah, I would. No doubt about it. And so home energy audit becomes a big part of understanding how your home works, because these are trained professionals who use diagnostic equipment like blower doors, combustion analyzers, sometimes infrared cameras, and other means and methods to seek out, measure, find, and all the leaks in your house. They examine your naturally vented combustion appliances to make sure they're working right. So a furnace or a hot water heater with a flue that vents by gravity, etc. All those things are looked at before they deliver a report with a series of recommendations. So what you're getting, right, is you're starting to know, okay, I've got my utilities figured out. Now I know where the holes in my house are. I know the state of my hot water heater and my furnace, and I can start to make a plan to move forward. That's about having a baseline. It's about understanding where you are today and being ready to move forward. Now, all these houses were built with a lot of really good ideas. Back in the day, builders knew a lot of good stuff about managing heat and cool. They weren't so good on the insulation thing, but they were smart enough to use double hung windows because, again, cool air in down low and warmer air out. And in my house, maybe some around here, I've got transoms on the interior doors to allow for privacy and draft, pulling air from front to back, with windows open and transoms open. I mean, this is old school thinking about how to deal with it. And that's why I've got 9.5-foot ceilings and not 8-foot ceilings, right? That was part of the strategy as well for dealing with that. And that's why something like deciduous trees on the south side of a house makes sense. They can provide shade in the summer. The leaves fall off, let the sun's warmth through the windows to heat things up in the winter. Then, of course, at night, you'd use the shades and the curtains to keep the cold out. In the case of the summertime, you might sort of reverse it, keep those shades and curtains, let them help out too, keeping some of the heat out. So there's all kinds of old school things that are part of the deal. And there's a handful of things that I think most of us are capable of doing on a do-it-yourself basis. Looking at windows and caulking and sealing and improving the weather stripping is a good and easy enough thing to do if one has patience. Maybe one can go to a little, sometimes they have little workshops at Home Depot or whatever, or somebody in the neighborhood's got a clue and can help you get started in the right way. Usually windows are the lowest return on investment thing. So window replacements usually don't have the same kind of payback that other improvements do. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Even the best windows only take you from an R value of 1 to an R value of about 2. And the other reason is that windows are typically the smallest part of your building envelope. And your building envelope is the separation between you and the weather. So it's your foundation, your basement floor, your walls, and your roof, etc. And if you use spray foam in windows to seal up things, make sure it's low expansion spray foam. Otherwise, it'll expand so much, push the window jambs together, and you'll never open it again. So having the right tools and the right materials for the job can be critical. Old windows on beautiful old houses can be rehabbed. There's new kinds of storm windows that are pretty much invisible. And so there's a lot of options with windows in a do-it-yourself way. I think even easier in a do-it-yourself basis is fixing up door openings with weather stripping, sweeps, and thresholds. So if you can wake up in the morning and you see a little bit of light around the back door, that's your Laclede bucks and your Ameren bucks exiting. And push in place weather stripping, door sweeps that you have a little adjustment, so you can get it on there and kind of adjust it so it's closing the gap but not dragging the finish off your floor and things like that, are things that are fairly easy to do on a do-it-yourself basis. Insulation saves money. And in an old brick home where you don't have the budget to reframe the outside walls, or the house is just too damn beautiful the way they did the living room, etc., that there's, I'm not going to screw that up, then don't screw it up. It's not an all or nothing, kind of a deal. What you can do in the basement, any wood framed additions, and in the attic can still make a huge difference in terms of air sealing and insulation. So this is a section through a wall of a typical habitat house. And the only thing I really want to say is that it makes a big difference. And in older homes like yours, if you air seal around the joists and things around the perimeter of the building, and you have good air sealing around dryer vents and hose bibs and things that penetrate, and you have seal it up where the pipes go up into the attic, because that's just a little chimney. Those little holes where the wires and the pipes go up, for that stack effect to happen, and for there to be air movement that doesn't serve any efficient purpose. So we have those things to consider even in houses of this vintage. And there's probably a mix of flat roofs and pitched roofs around the neighborhood, but probably most of the single families are pitched. Some 2.5 stories. That guy lived in a 2.5 stories house. I know Bernie Miklas, I've worked on his house back in the day, and he's in the neighborhood, and a few other people. Insulation in attic spaces, no matter what the shape of the roof, is about more than renting something from the store and blowing it, shooting the cannon up in there, right? If that's all you do, you're not doing all you can. And so what I want to say about that, in many roof systems, there's insulation with a baffle, there's ventilation down low and up in the ridge, right? And so if you blow in there and you've got all this filled with insulation, all of a sudden your roof's not going to last as long because it's going to be so dang hot in there with no air movement above it. And the other thing is that a good insulation and air sealing contractor will be air sealing before he insulates. All the little gaps even between plaster and drywall and wall plates through the electrical penetrations, plumbing penetrations, and using flashing, say around chimney penetrations through the attic to slow that airflow down. So insulation has a resistance to heat transfer, But stuff like fiberglass insulation doesn't have that great a resistance to air movement. And the air sealing helps the, I'm gonna sneeze, I got allergies. Or maybe I won't, you know. Anyway, by minimizing that air movement, you maximize the performance of the insulation. Now, so my real world experience is air sealing and insulation, trust but verify. So if you're going to be a do-it-yourselfer or hire a contractor, check out the contractors. Go to websites like EnergyStar.gov and research how to insulate and air seal. And you know, and then if nothing else, always go to EnergyStar.gov and do some good research, because it'll help you interpret what a contractor is proposing to do, and you can see if they're talking about the good stuff. Where's the air sealing, Mr. Insulation Contractor? Mm-hmm. You know, there are places on my website, mobot.org, sustainability, with a list of home performance energy auditors and contractors that are in good standing with us. If you want to audit, you know, it's anywhere from $100 to $400, and depending on the size of the house and what else the person doing the audit does for a living. I think there's a nice contractor, I think, coming today to share some information with you. You know, it's worth hearing them out for sure. And in HVAC, bigger is not better. So, and by that I mean a big old system that's got tons of power, like Tim the Toolman Taylor likes, will come on and turn off, come on and turn off. And that's called short cycling. So what happens in cooling, for instance, is that it never really does the dehumidification work. The on and off, let's see, takes some of the durability out of the equipment. It's better off running for a longer time at a lower speed to make sure it takes the does the dehumidification work. You know, that's pretty dang critical stuff. So, and then if you've air sealed and insulated, you're not even going to need a bigger new furnace or a bigger new air conditioner when that time comes. You probably need a smaller one anyway, because you've reduced the load by keeping more of that energy in the house. So I know this is a lot of information to digest, but I think with the other speakers coming in, you'll probably leave at the end with a pretty good grip on this situation. I've got a handful of business cards here that I'll leave. Liz knows how to get a hold of me. Feel free to especially email, because I'm not at my desk all that much, with any questions you might have. There's a couple little cards that are little invites to our green ball, which is held at the Moonrise, and it's a little fundraiser for our division. It's a heck of a party. Well, thanks much, and if you got a question too, we can do that.
We have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, sir.
Bathroom vent fans.
Yes.
Are they a chimney too?
They are a chimney, but they're a necessary chimney, and it's a moisture management issue. So the biggest problem with bad vent fans is that they need to go out of the house. They don't need to be dumped in the attic, because that's just moving the moisture you're trying to manage into a place where you're also trying to manage moisture. So a bath fan that exits the house either through a sidewall or through the roof is the best thing that you can do. One that comes out and dumps down in the soffit, right, and comes out on the soffit isn't very good, because in winter, for example, it's just coming right back up. You know, it's just going to get kind of locked in there. It needs a place to go and stay gone. You know, so they're important, especially for moisture management, and they should have dampers, right? So that when the fan turns on, the damper opens up and it does its work. When it's turned off, it closes and minimizes that leakage. So there are some things in which, you know, it's by far the lesser of two evils to have a good functioning bath fan that exits properly with a functioning damper on it than to say, well, it leaks, so I'm gonna let my bathroom get moldy. All right, anything else? Well, heck, that was great. Thanks very much. And I'm gonna head back downtown.
Thank you.